Frank Britton.
It's his turn.
Going back to the question, I mean, what about the 13-year-old girl? I mean,
she's saying no.
But go back to then, and I mean, to speak of, you know, the talent of the one who is the perpetrator, what about the talent and what's happened to the victim? And what the law's got to be about is protecting the victim, whether or not she's talented. And if the perpetrator be talented, well, it counts for nothing. That's what justice, according to law, has to be about.
Although, sadly, you know, the stuff up of this means that it hasn't protected her at all. It's gone on for 35 years, and it could have all been over.
There's a broader point as well. It's not about the Polanski case, and this is where I get in my lawyer mode. It's about the integrity of the justice system. You cannot, I think, as a justice system, tolerate or reward someone just because they managed to get away with it for 30 years and say, oh, it was a long time ago. Well, no. There is a reason that the criminal law doesn't have a statute of limitations that applies to it by and large. And that is because we deem crime to be of such significant import that it must be punished irrespective of what time has elapsed between the commission of the offence and the finding of the offender.
There is, imagine what we would say if it was a bishop.
Well, of course. But I just cannot...
Probably what everyone on the panel actually has been saying. So you're watching Q&A, the live and interactive forum where you ask the questions. Our next question comes from Bazda Yildiz.
Why is it that the Islamic country, Iran, is the threat to peace in the world and not the Zionist? Is it America's support of Israel? Well, hundreds of people are getting killed in Gaza and West Bank every day. With the support of America. The Israel-Palestinian war has been going on for 61 years, and we are not actually looking at what is actually happening, and we're fearing about what is not happening. We're fearing about something that hasn't happened.
OK. Sally Warhalf, do you want to pick that up? And I might add, by the way, we had a number of questions asking why Iran's nuclear program and not Israel's is the illegal one.
Look, this is it's a tragedy. I think with Israel and Palestine, it's something where it almost takes half an hour to sort out what has to happen. You know, the Palestinians need a state. Israelis need to feel secure. But it feels like it's just so far away. I think that part of the problem is obviously the delicacy of the Israeli coalition. I mean, I don't know, beyond what I've just said, that it's simple what has to happen, but how you make it happen and how you make people want peace more than they want other things is beyond me.
Christopher Hitchens.
It's become a familiar thing. I should perhaps preface this by saying that with Edward Said, the late Professor Edward Said, I wrote a book about the rights of Palestinians and the way in which these have been negated by Israeli policy. But I know a lot of people in the Arab and Muslim world who are fed up with having the subject changed to Israel whenever human rights for them comes up. A very good example of this just last week in Tehran, where the government has an official Al-Quds Day, as it's called, the Day of Jerusalem, where school children and others are paraded. It's a more or less compulsory demonstration to say they'll give their blood and their lives for Palestine. And hundreds of thousands of Iranians turned up to say, no, we'll only give our blood for Iran, thanks. We're fed up with being told by the regime that they represent the oppressed of Palestine, that we can't talk. And they are having to shed their blood because the regime keeps on killing them for wanting to have a say in their own internal affairs. And a regime that does this and has just pulled off a blood-stained military coup that's overturned the results even of an already predeterminedly fraudulent election, that says that that a woman's voice is worth that of only... it takes 3 women in a court against 1 man, that uses torture and rape as policies in prison and so forth. You want a regime like that to have nuclear weapons? You're welcome. But you should say that's what you don't mind. Are you going to say that? Are you going to say you've no objection? That the real problem is the Jewish state? Come on, be serious.
So the Jewish state doesn't have nuclear weapons? Is that what you're saying?
Well, now, I appeal again to the fair-mindedness and intelligence of the audience. Did I say that?
No, but
Did I in any way imply it?
No, but...
Did I not begin with a throat clearing, which I'll amplify if you will, about my long record of work about this, my defence of the Israeli dissidents who published the news about Israel's illegal programme and gone to jail for it. I can refer you to all that if you like. But my point was directed specifically to you.
Yeah.
I said, does this, in your mind, make the destruction of human rights in Islamic countries OK or not?
No.
Good.
OK,
No,
let's hear from Walid.
Well, that's progress of a kind.
This is, I think, highlights the really difficult, I think personally intractable situation that now confronts the world in dealing with Iran's apparent nuclear weapons regime. And I hear today that the UN's still arguing that they're not developing weapons. But whatever you think about that, there is a problem because you do get questions like this, whether or not you agree with Christopher that there's a lack of moral seriousness about that question. You're always going to get that question. The minute the conversation turns to Iran, it is going to be deflected towards Israel. And so the problem is that if you're interested in disarming Iran or somehow reigning in that regime, it's very hard to do that in isolation without also engaging in some kind of agreement that's going to bring Israel into the mix. And, of course, the US, who also have nuclear weapons. I'm encouraged by the fact that President Obama is talking about a nuclear-free world, and that when he headed the UN presided over the UN Security Council this week, which I think the first time an American president has ever done that, the vote to rid the world of nuclear weapons was unanimous. That's all good. But now the really, really tough politics starts, and that is the politics of dealing with an Iranian regime that, frankly, probably sees very little incentive, if any, to try to disarm or to become less evil. It's got every reason to remain as evil and perhaps have become even more evil than it is. And Israel is going to have to be part of that discussion, whether they like it or not, whether the US likes it or not, because without that, I just can't see how there's a way forward on it.
Tony, sorry, I simply must say this. I'm really sorry. Implied in both what Walid has said and the lady questioner is the idea that Iran is perfectly entitled to have nuclear weapons. At least if Israel is, it is.
No, that's not what I thought at all.
The Iranian government, don't let's forget, says it doesn't want them and isn't planning to have them. And so if it turns out they are, it's not a problem to do with Israel, it's to do with them breaking every undertaking they've ever made at the United Nations, every undertaking they've ever made to the International Atomic Energy Authority, every undertaking they've ever made to the European Union negotiators. It means that international law is completely meaningless. And yet, when Mr. Ahmadinejad tests missiles, he says this is part of our nuclear program. How is that part of a peace?
Yeah, can I just say...
Their party, their proxy party, Hezbollah, I've been to its rallies in Beirut. Do you know what the symbol of the party now is? What they put on the flag? A mushroom cloud, with a threat to the Jews written underneath it.
Can I say...
Actually, when you go to meetings of the American Jewish Committee, you don't quite get that propaganda.
Christopher, hold on. We're just going to hear from Walid.